Well, good afternoon. Kristen Collins here. Very excited to connect with my soul sister from the Northeast, Stella Grizont. Stella, how you doing up there?
Doing great.
It's
Doing
so
great.
wonderful to see you. And we're in matching pink.
We didn't even plan this.
That's because we are interconnected. Thank you so much for taking some time today to reminisce with me. What I'm doing right now in this pandemic is taking a pause and reflecting on my journey and reconnecting in some cases to some of the folks who have been very instrumental on my path. You, my friend, have been one of those game changers on my journey. And I just want to start by expressing gratitude for that. So I had the pleasure, say that again.
I feel the same way about you.
Oh, thank you, sister. So I want to start with how we met, and that was a fateful August 2019, where I was presenting at the WELCOA conference with Scott Cashman, my colleague, who I actually had the chance to reminisce with a few weeks ago. It was really fun. And then I wasn't really plugged into the conference because I had a lot that was going on, and I was in my hotel room working away. But I found myself in the front row of your keynote that you delivered at that WELCOA conference. How fate would have that. And I was feverishly scribbling notes from your talk and taking pictures of your slides and sending them back home. And I'm like, this girl's onto something. So do you remember what that talk was about that you gave at WELCOA?
Yeah, I talked about how to manage your mind and mood and how to help employees avoid self-sabotage when it comes to well-being. And what I remember is after giving the talk, I think all the speakers were gathering for like a boat trip. And there was like a big cluster of us, and you just like broke through the pack. And I just loved your energy. And I was like, oh my God, this is so awesome. And you were just, there was an instant connection. And then, then we kind of got separated and we're and then like we found each other on that boat again. And we just like talked for like, it felt like 2 hours.
It was.
And then it was just, history from there.
It was, and thank you for sharing that. I can be a little overzealous at times, that is for sure, but you resonated so deeply. You were just perfectly timed in my journey. And that's a lot of what I'm reflecting on right now is the wonder and the awe of how the universe just provides if you're open and present, and how I was not plugged in to that conference because, again, I mean, Scott flew out. I stayed back literally to connect with the speakers at the end to see, what relationships could be developed. And the irony of the one talk I went to being yours. And I want to talk a little bit about your talk, and then I definitely can't wait to explore our relationship post WELCOA. But I want to take a second to talk about your journey to your profession and what you speak on and coach people on, because I didn't know that you were able to like go get a master's in what you do. And I don't know that a lot of people understand that that's a thing. So can you talk a little bit about your journey to your program and what your program was about?
Sure. So I started my career in advertising on Madison Avenue, working at one of those big global agencies. And I thought, this is my dream job. I'm so passionate about it. Yes, I'm just going to climb the ladder and, that's it. And then like many people, it just started eventually, it was getting harder and harder to wake up in the morning. Suddenly I was like getting sick, and I never would get sick before. And I just felt like my spirit starting to cave in on itself. Like I just felt like really like, who am I? Having all these big questions, feeling really trapped and just not, this wasn't right. And what I was telling myself at the time was, it's because I'm not able to express my creativity. It's like the bureaucracy of this big corporation and how it's trying to please its clients. It's not being true to like the creative spirit of advertising. And this just isn't for me. This big organization just isn't working for me. And so what I shared in the talk was how when I would feel really sad, I would turn to Nutella at home and I would just eat it with a tablespoonful, like just, scraping at the bottom of the jar, wondering how did I get to the bottom of this jar with this tablespoon, like no crackers, nothing. But then eventually I had been working with this organization on the side called Ladies Who Launch, which was all about helping women launch their businesses. And this was early 2000s when it wasn't it wasn't like a thing to be an entrepreneur. And that's where I really felt like my heart was belonging, like these women who were being bold and living out their dreams and taking risks and really being creative and true to themselves. And I thought, these are my people. And then one day they offered me a full-time position and I was like their second employee. So I decided to take the leap and join this organization. I thought, now I found my place. These are my people. This is my tribe. I'm doing something so meaningful. It's so creative. Every day felt so right. And then 8 years later, I found myself back in that Nutella jar, feeling completely burnt out, feeling completely lost, wondering what I had gotten myself into, because this is a startup for entrepreneurs. Like what career is this? Like, what the hell am I doing? What can I do after this? Like this, it was just, and so I was feeling that way because there were a number of reasons, but I felt like I wasn't aligned with what our leadership and our investors were wanting us to do. And so I thought, you know what? I just got to go and start my own company, because that way, if I'm, making the choices, I can be as creative as I want. I can do something I'm passionate about, and I won't have to be misaligned with leadership. So I need to go and launch my own business. And so before I went to launch my own business, I decided to go. I stumbled upon, talk about synchronicity. It was May 21st, which is my birthday, which was yesterday.
Delighted.
Thank you. And my friend called me and I was really depressed. And I was like, oh my God, I'm so depressed. I don't want to go into the office. Like, all these people our members at the time weren't able to, long story, our technology wasn't working. And I felt like I was responsible for all of it, even though I wasn't. And, I just felt way down and I was so eager to please everyone. There's no way I could. And I was so depressed. And my friend said, you know what? I just read this great article. It's called The Law of the Garbage Truck. And you guys should check it out. It's now a book. And I looked at it and I read it. And then I scanned the bottom, and David Polay, who wrote the article, it said he had graduated from Yale, he does all this corporate work, and he got his master's in applied positive psychology from UPenn. And I thought, what is positive psychology? I need to learn about this. And so I don't know how I found David's email, but I did. And I emailed him and I was like, what is this? And he was so generous with his time. He spent over an hour with me on the phone. He was so kind. Now he's a colleague of mine, which is amazing. This was 11 years ago. And then I thought, okay, that's really cool. That's nice. I'm just going to file this away for one day. So fast forward, it was 2008. The economy crashed. I was laid off. And then there was a voice that I heard inside of me that said, now's your time. So I ended up looking up what this positive psychology thing was. The application was due in 5 days. Hustled. I submitted the application. I got my former boss, all my bosses to give me recommendations, and I got it in. I ended up getting into the program. And I thought, okay, now I'm going to launch my company. And my vision for the company was to design these immersive play experiences to help people really get into the present moment, to access their creativity, to be awake to the connection of all of us. Just, that technicolor experience when we're like, yes, this is life. It comes in, we get it every now and then, but we're not able to stay there. And I wanted to help people get there and extend that moment. So anyway, this is like really long. I don't know.
No, I love it because I'm learning so much, and that's the point of this.
So anyway, I get into UPenn. There's a whole nother romance part of this. I ended up getting engaged. I ended up canceling the wedding like 30 days before the wedding. There was like a lot going on. So I was studying the science of happiness, and I suddenly found myself feeling extremely depressed. And I, 1 year into like launching my business, I was depressed. I was back in the Nutella jar. I was sabotaging my own company, even though we had clients like Google and Aramark and Aramark. We were on the news. I looked great on the outside, but on the inside, I was in a fetal position, like eating chocolate. And so that's when I got the wake up call. And that's when I realized I was reflecting, and I was like, oh my God, what if it wasn't the big corporation and the bureaucracy? Like, what if it wasn't the leaders? Here I am, I'm in the same place. What if it's been me? Like, what if it's me? What if it's been me all along? And so that was the beginning, that was the genesis of the work happiness method, which is what took me many, many years to put together. But basically, it's about teaching inner skills to take responsibility for your experience, but also to experience your own power over your career and over your life. And so
I'm going to ask you to pause there for a hot second because I want to get into what you do now, but I want to reflect on what you've just shared. And that's why this is so fun for me and why I'm so thankful I had a knowing to go, I can't articulate all that I think. It's just too much. So if I each week reflect with a friend, a colleague, a stranger who has impacted my life, it's going to help me process. And that's what you're doing right now. So I want to reflect on your knowing that you had that this is your time.
yeah.
And it was synchronized that there was 5 days to apply to UPenn and you got in. So that's really important. I think that I'm trying to articulate to people who are on their wake up and their journey is you have to be present and quiet and calm. And the answers are already inside of you, which then leads me to the second reflection I would like to explore with you before we move on. As I'm feverishly taking notes, I still have them from your presentation. And I loved because you were like, it was a bunch of HR people, a bunch of, that we were presenting to, that you were presenting to that morning. And you're like, so I bet you're all going to go home and you're going to interview every single employee and ask them, what can I do to support your well-being? And I'm in the front row. I'm like, yes, I'm going to go home and do that. I'm going to ask all 15,000 people that work for my company how I can support their well-being journey. And you said, guess what? That's not going to work because they don't know. And I was like, so please know how that sentence impacted my journey because I was like, oh my God, she's right. So with that, and thank you for allowing me that reflection, take me into the now between how are we getting in touch to improve our well-being?
Yeah, and I've given that presentation a lot, and I've never said that. And I said that because I had just been sitting in all the sessions, and it was really of the moment responding to what was in the room. And so I love that that's what resonated to you, because that was just like in the moment reacting to what I was feeling in the room. So that's very validating for me to hear. And yeah, the problem is we have a really hard time knowing what we really, really want. And the way that we've been taught to figure out what we want is really backwards. I call it backwards logic, because we set a bunch of goals that sound really exciting and admirable and good. And then we go after them. And oftentimes we even achieve them, but then we're left there being like, is this all there is? And we're not satisfied. And so, just like in my career, I kind of went after it. I did the advertising thing. I was like labeled a superstar. Great, but I'm like miserable and sick. And then I went after the entrepreneur thing and had amazing results and helped impact 100,000 women. But then I was like a like sliver of myself. Like I was like, this isn't worth it, right? So we can go after it, we can achieve our goals, but it doesn't mean that they're the right goals. And so we end up choosing things that sound right based on what we've been told is the right thing to go after, but it's not aligned with who we are. So the work happiness method teaches you how to create first your career and your life vision, not from a goal setting perspective, but from a being perspective.
Right?
And that's like such a subtle thing. And it took me like 10 years to figure that out. Just like, oh, it's not about what I'm doing, it's about how I'm being. And so if I focus on how do I want to be, that actually opens up infinite possibilities for what I need to do. Like there's actually so many ways for me to express that. And so for employees or leaders who are feeling stuck, the good news is like that you actually have more choices than you think. And so I love that hope that we can like immediately kick off with. And what it also does is it gives people a level of control that they feel like they're lacking, right? Oh, my boss isn't giving me a raise, or oh, I'm not working the hours that I want, or I'm not doing exactly what I want to do. Yeah, but you actually have a whole series of choices in front of you that you can activate to be how you want to be and feel how you want to feel. So we help them get clear on that first. And then what we do is we talk about boundaries. So boundaries, I think this was really important for Lee Health, right? We saw that, like that was especially for people who are selfless and taking care of others and caregivers, right? It's instinctual to always put other people first. And so the shadow side of that is that you're not tending to yourself, which is why most doctors and nurses actually have poor well-being, ironically, and the system sucks. So we talk about how do you create healthy boundaries and prevent burnout. And because you can get clear on your vision and you can go after it, but you can go after it with struggle or you can go after it with more ease.
And Stella, I think that's, first of all, it's really cool to be hearing from you that my huge takeaway and the catalyst that it was in the direction of my journey was not actually part of your regular talk, and is what brought us together to make me stalk you at the speaker dinner at Walcoa. That was so fun. Room, you and I are now besties, and we got to talk.
Yeah.
No, but I think that was the beginning of the shift for me to understand, and literally it was divinely timed. I came home and I stopped looking for my answers outside of myself. And I started contemplating, as you've mentioned, it's inside of me, right? Being. And so that to me, and then the whole boundary setting. I'm going to be connecting with my community in about 2 weeks to talk about boundaries and how healthy they are. And recently we talked about being self-care is not selfish. It's this whole mindset, and it's this whole, the answers are outside of us, and they're not. They're perfectly divinely within. So you have been a catalyst for me and many, many others to shed light on that and support that. And we did get to do a pilot the end of 2019 together, and we had some community members and some internal corporate people go through your journey. And those were all hand-selected folks because of their readiness, right? And you really This is a little bit deeper work, so it is beneficial when folks are ready to explore this. And the lives that you touch through that pilot continue to reverb down in Southwest Florida. So I so am appreciative for your friendship and your work. Talk to me a bit about how the gigantic global pause this pandemic has presented. Some are calling it the Great Awakening. Some are calling it the Great Pause. You live in the Northeast. You know, one of the epicenters of the globe for this pandemic. And we're connected during this, but not. I'm really not attuned to what your experience is. So talk to me a little bit about how this has been affecting you.
Uh, I mean, it's different every day. I think the hardest thing is having, for me, what I think what it's doing, which is really great, is just helping surface all the things that you need to look at that you haven't looked at, right? That's what all big like challenges do. And so for me, one of the things that I've had to look at is just, well, I have a 5-year-old at home and I'm working and my husband is working. And so I've had to like really look at my boundaries with my daughter, um, my guilt of what I think I should be doing, right? Like I should be spending all this time with her and making sure like I'm maximizing every moment with her. And then I should be, this is the time when my business, like what I offer is really needed and I should be ramping up on. So I found myself really, which is my go-to when I'm stressed, is to like ramp up, like work harder. So that was interesting. And then, that didn't work for very long. But one of the things I wanted to do in this time was to be of service. And so I quickly called you and I said, what do you think? Like, I'm imagining the extreme emotional, mental toll that this is taking on healthcare workers. What if we offer some free coaching? And you were like, yeah, go for it. And I was like, okay, that's all I needed. So in like 1 week, 1 week later, we had like 50 coaches. And we like 3 weeks later, we had a website. So that's been, I wish I could say I've paused. I think I've paused in like maybe listening here and there, but doing this, it's called the Hero Hotline. That's actually been a lot of work, but it's been heart work. So that feels good. It's been really good to do that. And it's been a blessing because I have like a team of 50, which is so exciting because last year my intention was to build my team. And it's so funny how the universe works. Like now I have a team of 50.
Yeah.
So, and also it's been really, it's helped accelerate things in my marriage, like for us to look at. It hasn't been pleasant, but it's been really healthy. And so we're looking at stuff together. I've started gardening. So that's actually been a beautiful pause, is like getting into nature. I've been a city girl my whole life. This is the first time I have my own backyard as an adult, and I've been afraid of it for 3 years. Like I have like not ventured. I've been afraid. We're like in the Northeast, so we have ticks. So that's like, that was making me scared. Then we have like poison ivy. We have like all these things, and I'm just like, oh, I don't want to deal. But this year, I'm like partnering with Mother Earth. I'm digging in the soil. I'm planting flowers. So that's been really beautiful. But yeah, what I'm seeing is it's really uncomfortable for a lot of people. And so it's really testing our ability to sit with the discomfort. And I think that's good tension. And I think a lot of people are avoiding it, right? With our rush to reopen. I was just reflecting with a friend like she lives in Florida in Jacksonville, and she's like, dance class is starting next week for my daughter. Should I like put her in? I'm like, that feels way too early. But that's my personal opinion. I'm a little bit more paranoid. And we were talking about like, what's the rush? And I think the rush is, I want to feel like it used to feel again, because this is very uncomfortable.
Absolutely. And it's interesting, and things are different in Florida a little bit than New York, but it's all foundationally the same. And part of my journey and awakening since you and I connected last August has really been getting comfortable with sitting through discomfort. I was horrible at that. The second I was uncomfortable, I was like, I'm out, or I'm gonna, or I'm gonna project, or I really thought I was controlling my environment my whole life. And it was in December, so a couple months after you visited down here, and my husband and I had a discussion, and it was not a comfortable discussion. And my usual, I'm gonna withdraw or physically just like, no, I sat through it, and it was such a breakthrough for our relationship, and honest. And since that was way before the pandemic, but now, I mean, I have never been happier in my marriage. And it's not because it's like easy, or it's flowing through all the insanity of what this pandemic is bringing, but I think it's that honesty and transparency of, yeah, I'm uber uncomfortable right now, and that's okay. And you also said something else about tension, and that was another aha I had this year. I was on a call about positive psychology with the American College of Lifestyle Medicine, which you flew to Florida and joined me at that conference last year. And Liana, who is the woman I went there to meet, she hosts this group through ACLM. And one of the presenters talked about logotherapy and Viktor Frankl's Man's Search for Meaning. And I was like, whoa, you probably studied that. And so I loved, my takeaway from her presentation was, it's not about balance. And I was like, what? I thought it was all about living a balanced life. She said it's about healthy tension. In the healthy tension that you grow. And I was like, oh my God, yes. I don't want to just go sit in namaste in like perfection and have no stimuli. How do you identify who you are? And I think that's what this pandemic is gifting us with, though not necessarily, consciously, but it's, no, this is tense. There is tension. There is discomfort. Who are you growing through? How are you addressing? And I think that's been a really cool awakening, this year for me.
Yeah, that's really, I remember for me, the most visceral experience of that was childbirth, because I felt like you could not escape it. Like there was only one way this was going to end. There's multiple ways, but thankfully it ended like with my daughter being healthy and me being healthy. But like, I remember that feeling of like, I really can't like Netflix this away. I can't Nutella it away. I can't, like, I have to be here. And that was so, and so it's almost like, and I've heard a lot of people talk about how we are pregnant now with new possibility, right? With what's going to emerge. Like men, women, all of us are pregnant, holding the creation of, this new future that we're walking into. And so, but it's like, it's messy and it's uncomfortable, and it can be really actually painful, and it can break you, right, in many ways. So yeah, I do like that. That healthy tension is really nice.
Yeah, that was a huge takeaway for me. And you know what? That just inspired in my brain my relationship with you and my friendship with you, which, thank goodness we actually got to physically meet. because last week I had the pleasure of reconnecting with the gentleman, Brandon Peele, who's this incredible global thought leader on purpose. And yet I physically have never met him. And I'm like, that's so weird. Like, he's had such an impact on my direction, but I've never physically met him. So I so cherish that you and I got to spend you made it happen when we were hosting Dr. Deepak Chopra to town and the American College of Lifestyle Medicine was in Florida. I'm like, I know I just met you, but would you like to come to Florida, meet me in Orlando, come stay at my house? I mean, just thank you. And I also want to thank you that you provide in my life that petri dish. I crave the petri dish where I can have a deeper dialogue, where I can reflect, I can grow. I can hear something that you say that adds or uncovers or whatever. And you are so special to me for that. And I just want to express gratitude for the world that you provide for me and so many others. As well, being in the healthcare space and going through this pandemic, there was a flood, like a tsunami actually is a better word, outpouring of support for the industry, which was beautiful and very, very appreciated, but it was also messy and exhausting. And it was like, it was a tsunami. And, what can you capture? What can you offer? And of all of the offerings from outside of my organization where I work that came in, you were the only one that was executed. And so I want to thank you and compliment you, because while the others were beautiful intent, and I'm not judging them wanting to help or their why behind their motive. I think it was very genuine, but no one else was able to put it together and package it and be effective in its presentation to get to the workers. You were the only one.
Oh, wow. Thank you.
I don't think I've had the opportunity to.
I didn't know that. Wow.
So that's just a testament to you and, your reflection of what this pandemic's doing for you with the doing. You are pausing. You're ebbing and flowing and growing through this, just like, I am. But your offering was so timely and so impactful. And so I really appreciate that.
Oh, thank you. That is so nice to hear. That is the other thing that I've noticed is, like, how you were saying it's all within me. It's like already here. And I think what I've learned over the time is that I've heard it. I just don't like what I'm hearing all the time, right? And so I've gotten a few messages like that during this time. And I'm like, oh, really what I'm hearing? I don't want that to be the case. There's this one project I've been working on for years. I've spent so much time and money on it. And I'm just like, I think you got to let it go. And so it's very interesting. And yeah, so.
That's huge. That's a huge vulnerability of being able to face. That makes me think of a story. It was a couple of years ago. My husband and I, he had, as you know, he had 2 kids when I met him. So financially for 18 years, we kept separate finances because he had 2 kids to be accountable for. I didn't, whatever. And it worked for us. I made my money, did what I wanted, whatever. The only rule was that there would be no debt. Well, I'm not really all. That didn't work out, but of course I wasn't sharing that with him. And I was getting nervous because I had started carrying some credit card debt. And I was like, oh, this is not, if he finds, like, he's going to be very disappointed, very mad at me. So I started concentrating on that. And I was like, okay, universe, I need your help. Like, by this date, and it was March 31st. I remember the date. I don't know what year this was, but by March 31st, this debt's going to be gone. Help me figure that out. Help me figure that out. And I kept putting it out to the universe. In March that year, I have a very early morning breakfast meeting for work. I leave and there's a message from my husband. And it was like, Kristen, this is David. Please give me a call. 239-8, and I was like, okay. And call him back. And he's like, I'm refining our mortgage. I'm like, okay. And he's like, I just pulled a credit report on you. I was like, okay. And he's like, do you realize that you have this, or that it's showing this credit card debt? Are you aware of that? And I was like, oh. And I said, I am aware of that. And he said, okay, well, from here on out, I am now in charge of our finances. And, we do this whole thing. So you just reminded me of that incredibly uncomfortable story. I knew I needed to address the situation, but I was not in control of how it got addressed.
Right.
And the universe absolutely took care of the debt. I never had to worry about that debt again from that day forward. Before the March 31st date I'd asked for, it 1000% was not in the way that I wanted, like a check to come in. So, and can I tell you, Stella, that the grace that my husband dealt with that situation, we never spoke about it again. He never made me feel guilty about it again. But I promise you right now, there has never been credit card debt. First of all, he does all the finances now, so it can't be. But what a gift to our marriage. What a gift to me. I was wrong. I was being, it was on me. And I had to, I didn't have to. The universe exposed it, and I had to step through it. And so I loved, your reflection of, it's not what I want to hear. And I hope my story to you helps you realize it's not necessarily what you want to hear. And the other piece too, in reflection, that I'm starting to embrace, and you and I have not talked about this, is surrender. I told my husband this morning, the word of the day, because I've been saying patience, and that's the wrong word. It's surrender, right? So letting go is one thing. But I also have blockage with allowing the receiving.
Yep.
And that's probably a worthiness thing. I don't really know, but it's one thing to let go. But then it's a whole nother thing to allow receiving.
Totally. Yeah.
So for some reason, I'm wanting to share that with you, my soul sister.
I mean, I think I struggle with that. I think so many people struggle with that. So I think, yeah, we all, it's so common. I think especially it's common for women because we're giving. So yeah, but I think we all have to, I think what's cool about this pandemic, I don't know if cool is the right word, but it just shows you how each person really matters, right? Like each person really does matter. And the worth that we all have, like the one person, I don't know if it was from her, but I remember when the one person in New York who was identified with COVID, she had been like traveling abroad and she came back and she was self-quarantining. But it's just like each of us really matters and we all matter to each other. And when we don't surrender and we don't receive from one another, and when we don't, it's like stopping the grace. And yeah. So and also I think what I'm getting from that is, so one of the hard things has been my husband's work has really ramped up, and since I have more flexibility, I've been the one who's taken on the childcare, which has been a real friction point. We're working on it. And so, but one of the things I've had to do is just surrender to it, just accept it. And I think there's something about just accepting the situation as is, which is really hard to do when you're really pissed off about it. Right?
And I think that is just very attuned to what's going on right now. And so many people in my messaging that I've been sharing on well-being to the community has been on survivor's guilt and, just owning how you feel. And in comparison to other people who may have it worse, and why, I don't have the right to feel bad because I don't have it as bad as the next person. And it's really being present in the moment, owning your emotions, whatever they are, right? Whatever that friction point is. And I think spending some time with you today, every time I get to connect with you, just my heart is satiated, and I learn. But I hope for folks who plug in along with us, as takeaways, is that, they see you, the expert who has, her master's in happiness from UPenn, who leads 50 coaches through this. You too personally have, your moments as well. And that's very refreshing. And I appreciate that you've shared that with me. So Stella, if anybody was interested in plugging into your work, what is the best way to connect with you?
So they could email me,
Perfect.
Stella at woopaah.com. That's WOOPAAH.com, which actually is changing soon. But I'll announce that later. And they could also, one offering, we talked at the beginning about clarity and knowing what your vision is. And so I'd rather them get something out of it immediately, so they can go to visiongenerator.com and download my tool, which I offer for free. It's the first thing I do with my clients to establish, what is it that really matters to you? And how can you start orienting towards that? So visiongenerator.com, you can download it, and then I'll have you on my list, and then I'll email you some things, and we can go from there.
Well, I thank you for that, and I'll include that. And I love your emails, and I feel like you're directly talking to me every time I get one. So thank you so much for taking some time today to reflect with me, but also just thank you for being my friend and my strategic partner who makes my brain think and makes my heart soar. And I'm just really thankful we have crossed and we've stayed together, and just know how much you mean to me.
Thank you. Thank you.
Love you, sis.
Love you.
Bye.
Bye.